So let's talk a little more now about the pros and cons of the Allied mission. Here with me in the studio is the Arab commentator and journalist Nabila Ramdani and former MP and anti-war campaigner George Galloway. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
George Galloway, we just heard from the Prime Minister launching this debate in the House of Commons that the action in Libya is necessary, legal and right. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I don't agree with any of those 3 points, and more importantly, the people who are on the Security Council will this evening, because the Council has been recalled by China, begin to make it clear that they don't think so either. It's clear that the resolution is written in such a way that some people are, I think, willfully misinterpreting it. If it's true, as the American general just said, that there is now effectively a no-fly zone in Libya, and that Gaddafi's forces have stopped attacking civilians, it follows that there's therefore no need for any further bombardment. And yet further bombardment there is. And moreover, overnight, one of the missiles landed on the house of the Libyan leader Gaddafi, the brute dictator Gaddafi that we were doing such a roaring trade with, £220 million worth of arms in the last year alone we sold to Libya. Now we're trying to kill him. And that's almost certainly illegal. And I think that the Security Council will have serious words to say about that this evening.
Nabila Ramdani, do you agree with that? I mean, David Cameron has stressed in the House of Commons that the action that's been taken so far has averted a bloodbath. Should it be welcomed?
Well, just to pick up on the first point that you were making, I think the UN resolution has always been legally quite weak, actually. Let's not forget that, 5 people abstained overall. The backup of the Arab countries, the Arab contribution, has always been tokenistic, and it's now ambivalent.
Well, how can you say tokenistic when you have the leader of the Arab League coming out in full support?
Well, hasn't his position been really ambivalent over the last few days?
Well, that's why he clarified it today.
Well, he doesn't make it, less weak, if I may say so, because, the strongest voices in the Arab world are countries like Algeria, Syria, which have made abundantly clear that there was no need for such a military intervention.
The support of the Arab League is important, isn't it, George Galloway? Because that's basically the region saying we want this action.
No, and as we discussed just the other day on Sky News, the Arab League is itself a collection of dictatorships, many of whom are actually themselves firing on democracy demonstrators in their own countries, so they're not very credible. And Nabila's right, notwithstanding the re-clarification, or is it re-clarification of the Secretary-General today, in fact, there's not a single Arab aeroplane in the sky attacking Libya.
But we know that Qatari aeroplanes are going to take part.
Well, I'll believe that, frankly, when I see it. It doesn't take very long to get your aircraft from Qatar to Libya, and they've taken an inordinately long time. And I think that's because opinion in the Arab world has begun to turn quite decisively against this. Hundreds of cruise missiles being hurled at an Arab country is never going to be popular, no matter how brutal and awful the leader of that Arab country is. That's why even when Saddam was being bombed 8 years ago exactly today, even though people hated him, they didn't hate Iraq, and they didn't hate the Iraqis that were underneath the bombs.
Nabila Ramdani, what do you do then? Do you sit back and let Colonel Gaddafi carry on killing his people? We know that opposition leaders in Benghazi today have welcomed the airstrikes and say that it allows them to continue with their aim of pushing on into Tripoli.
Well, I think that's a crucial point, because the impression that the world increasingly, but more in particular the Arab world, is getting is that the very foundation, the very legitimacy of the UN resolution was indeed disingenuous, that the primary aim was not to protect the civilians, as was claimed, but indeed to end Gaddafi, either by killing him or by introducing a regime change.
But if the objective is to protect civilians, and by all necessary means, then perhaps killing Gaddafi might be part of that fulfilling that objective.
Well, it hasn't been stated clearly, and that's where, the hypocrisy, if I may say so, comes in. And also, there's, an increasingly a sentiment in the Arab world that why is Libya such a priority when we are when we have reports coming out of Bahrain, of Yemen, very graphic reports of people being killed, being rushed in hospitals en masse, and being slaughtered by Saudi Arabia. Why is Libya such a priority? Well, I think I've answered that. You know, it's oil and natural gas. There are millions of pounds of it in Libya. And of course, companies like BP and Shell were starting to exploit it very nicely under Gaddafi, and his new pariah status makes it impossible.
George Galloway, I know that's your view as well, that the reason that we're going in Libya and not in other countries is because of the oil. David Cameron, though, would say that what's going on there gives the people of Libya a chance to choose the government that they want.
Well, I'm in favour, as you know, of that. I supported this revolution before David Cameron did. Indeed, I'm supporting all the Arab revolutions, which David Cameron isn't. So it's not that I want Gaddafi to stay in power, it's the opposite of that. I just say that the former colonial powers, Italy, for example, the last time Italy attacked Libya, they were wearing the uniforms of Mussolini, and so degraded was their conduct that they only last year agreed to pay 5 billion euros in compensation to Libya for the war crimes that they committed there. And the French in Algeria, don't get me started.
OK, well, I can't actually because we're out of time. George Galloway and Nabila Ramdani, thank you. We're going to actually take you to RAF Marham now. Station commander has been giving an update.
Well aware of the mission last night.